Hi everyone, it's Laura-Lee from Keenan Recruitment. We're delighted to be bringing Richard along today to talk all things pensions. If you're anything like me, it's probably been on the back burner and probably too long on the back burner for some people. So we thought we'd get some expert hands to help us out. So Richard, thank you so much for coming along today.
You're
And
welcome.
can you start by introducing yourself, telling us where you work, how you got into pensions, and a bit about some financial advice and how you can help us?
Okay. Hi, my name's Richard. I'm a chartered financial planner and I work for a company called Ardent Wealth, and we are part of M&G. So our job is to help people understand really where they are in terms of their financial position and what their goals are, because ultimately everyone's going to have their own way of planning for retirement. And the objective is to try and make sure that there's two things you want to avoid. You want to avoid running out of money before you die, and you want to avoid dying with too much. And everyone will have their own lifestyle that they want to live, and every lifestyle's got a price. So it's working out, firstly, what the plan is, how attainable that plan is, and what you need to do to get to it. That's broadly speaking what I do. Now, on the other side, I also work with Kith and Kin to help provide financial well-being, and that's what we're doing today. So today we're going to talk really about pensions, which, I mean, the word pension itself can make people recoil. It's just a savings plan. That's all it is. But the government want you to have one because it saves them money. So because they want you to have one, they give you tax advantages to put money in. They help the money grow in a quite a tax-friendly way. And if you're employed, they make your employer pay into it. So hopefully this will help take away some of that fear of pensions, because I think sometimes it can be seen to be more scary than it really is.
Oh, I know that's definitely me. I'm probably the girl that's hiding the money under the mattress. So without that, as a plan, can you tell us a wee bit about what type of pensions are available and kind of a bit more information about those?
Okay, surely. Broadly speaking, you have two types of pension, and what differentiates them is the liability, in the sense that who has to pay. So the first one you have is a defined benefit pension, which you'll still see quite a lot of these in the public sector, especially in the healthcare sector. And the way that works is you pay money into the pension, and when you retire, you get a set pension, which is payable to you every month until the day you die. So if you live to 130, it's their problem, it's not yours. And the income is set, and it's based on three factors. So it doesn't really come down to investment growth. It's based on, firstly, how long you've worked for the employer and been a member of the scheme. It's based on a salary, which would have been final salary, but then it became career average, and there's different types, and an accrual rate. So whenever you come to retirement, those three factors will be spliced together and you'll get a figure. And with a defined benefit pension, there's no flexibility, or very little flexibility, but the income is guaranteed and it's index linked. And if you die first and you're married, there'll be a spouse's pension as well. So that's the older fashioned defined benefit pension. Very good. The other pension, and the pension you'll see more of now, is a defined contribution pension. And that is essentially a big savings plan. So your objective is to put as much money into that to benefit from employers' contributions, that the money grows in quite a tax efficient manner. But when you come to retirement and you've got a big pot of money, it's effectively then your problem, in the sense that you need to use that money to provide an income for the rest of your life. Now, there's different ways of doing that. You can buy an income. You can go and take money directly from an invested fund, or you can do a combination of the two. But what you do have, therefore, is a lot more flexibility. But if you take money directly from the pot, which is known as drawdown, then depending how much you take and depending how long you live, the music might stop. You might run out of money altogether. So again, different types of pension. But for most people, I imagine we're talking about putting money into a personal pension, group pension, which is a form of defined contribution.
And when should we all start planning this massive savings plan then, Richard?
yesterday. No, I think the problem with the pension, like everything else, the earlier you start, the easier it is. I've got some slides. I'm not going to go through the slides today because I think with my technical skills, it probably becomes a barrier. But one of these shows the difference between a couple, one of whom pays £150 in a month for 10 years, and then the other person pays in double the money for 5 years. So they both pay exactly the same amount of money, but the person that started over the 10 years actually gets more than double the growth. So the impact of having the money invested for longer, it does help. But there's other ways of doing it, and we got a couple of changes yesterday through the budget. Yesterday being the 15th of the month. So yesterday there was changes to rules which affect how much you can pay into a pension, which was previously capped, and you can pay in lump sums if you're in a position to do so. So you can kind of catch up, but it's important when you look at pensions that pensions are only part of the solution. It's trying to get towards your planned retirement in as good a shape as possible, whatever that means to you. So it might be debt-free, it might be kids out the house, lower outgoings. Some people will downsize, and some people will have other ways of doing it. You know, it's savings, investments, buy-to-let properties, but it's about having your own strategy. And the other thing to be careful of and look for is the state pension. So you can complete a form. It's known as a BR19 state pension projection form. And that will tell you two things. It will tell you how much state pension you've attained to date. And secondly, how many more years you need to pay national insurance to get the full state pension, which is £185 a week. Now, it depends when you'll get it. I'm 46, so my state pension is going to be 68. But in today's terms, it's about £750, £800 a month. So if you have a couple that both get the full state pension, and bear in mind, you'll need more income in your 60s and 70s than you'll need in your 80s and 90s. The state pension in later life becomes quite a significant amount. So you should always look at that as well.
And what do you think is the biggest misconception about pensions? Is it they're for later in life, or are we thinking, you know, I have a lot of students and new grads, and so you'd be recommending them to just get started, take the auto enrollment and just shave that off the bottom then?
I think the problem is you think it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
You know, so you start and you're young and you're you maybe got a student loan, you want to buy a house, and you've got, you know, you're paying for all these things, and the pension falls down the priority list.
Yeah.
The single most important thing that everyone should do is at least be a part of your scheme at work, because it guarantees that not only if you pay in, the company will pay in. So that's free money. But the biggest misconception is that, sure, I don't need to worry about it, it's not for years. Yeah. And then next thing you're my age and you're so just you don't have to go mad. I'd rather someone started with an affordable amount into the pension, even if it was less than it could be, and maintained that, than maybe went a wee bit too much, because you want to live a little as well. But certainly being a part of the employer pension makes a good start from as early as possible. Okay,
Richard, you've convinced me. So I've decided to pay into my pension, but where does my money actually go? What happens to it?
That will depend on you, but typically your money will go into some sort of investment fund, and that will come down to whatever asset class you choose to invest in. There are different ways to invest money, and there's different places to put your money. So whenever we look at how to invest money, broadly speaking, you've got 4 places. So you've got cash. Now, cash is useful because if you've got money in the bank, you can reach out and touch it. It won't go anywhere. But the problem with cash is it won't go up by very much either. And then you might have money in bonds, corporate bonds or company corporate bonds or gilts, and they are loans. And if you've ever lent money to somebody, you know your chances of getting it back depend on who you've lent it to.
Okay.
So if you lend money, or a big institution lends money to the UK government, they've always got it back, but they might not. So you're taking some risk and you get a better return than cash, typically. But equally, if you lend your money to a region in South America or something, you might get a better return because you're taking more risk. And then there'll be money perhaps in property. And by far the biggest way to see growth within a pension fund will be through direct equities or shares. When you buy a share, you buy a little piece of a company, and your little piece will go up and down with the perceived value of that company. The risk depends where you buy, depends on the currency you buy in, depends on the sector you buy in. But whenever we're talking about the big pension funds, they do all that for you. You don't have to choose what company you buy for. You choose what level of risk you're comfortable taking, and they'll package it all up and they'll put it into some sort of environment which has access to all those asset classes. And you can change. There'll be lots of different funds as you go through life. You might decide to take less risk as you get older, for example. But if you're starting in your 20s or 30s and retiring in 30 or 40 years' time, then you should be taking a reasonable amount of risk, because you can afford for it to drop down, because you don't need access to money for quite some time.
Okay, great. So Richard, we have a lot of temporary workers within the Keenan team, and some of them have maybe worked in multiple organisations before, obviously the new auto enrolment came in. If somebody was wanting to know, have they had pensions in multiple organisations and were wanting to bring them together, how does that work, and can that be done?
Yeah, it can do, and certainly it makes sense on some level to have all your pensions in one place, because you can track it, you can see it. But what's very important is it's very important that you do it for the right reasons. That for me, and I do this occasionally, but there has to be a demonstrable benefit to you in moving those pensions. And sometimes you'll find that the older pensions have got some features and benefits which aren't available anymore. So it's important to find out exactly what you've got, and then to see how it's invested, where it's invested, and whether it's still suitable for you. Because when you come to retire, at that point, you will need to bring everything together, because you'll want your money to come from one pot.
Yeah.
You come to retirement and you have 10 pensions. That's actually it doesn't really matter, as long as they're 10 decent pensions. So I would always be cautious. I would always say, yes, there's definite benefits to doing that, but you have to make sure that you're benefiting and not the advisor who's charging you a fee to move it.
Okay.
We sometimes come across so that the standard amount you can take from a pension as a tax-free lump sum when you get to that age is 25%, but it didn't used to be. It used to be higher. So occasionally we'll come across older pensions where you can take 30%, sometimes even more than that, 40%. So that's the sort of thing that you wouldn't want to give up. So just be careful doing that, but it's certainly worth reviewing your pensions. If you have pensions, or you think you might have pensions from previous employers, there is a UK pension tracing service.
Okay.
And I will send you the link for that. I don't just quite have it off the top of my head, but there's a link for that as well.
Perfect.
It's a government thing. They don't need much more than your national insurance number and your date of birth.
Perfect. So you've obviously mentioned there, then one of the questions we had in was multiple pensions. So we've covered that. The other, I suppose, as I mentioned at the start, we have a lot of, students and new graduates, but on the other side of that, we have retirees who are wanting to return to the workforce. They have a lot of skills and incredible, attributes to bring to an organization, but they're maybe a bit nervous about how that might impact their current pension. Would you have any advice or signposting for any of those staff?
Yes, and again, the budget had a bit of an impact yesterday with regard to that.
Okay.
It's important to remember that once you pass your state pension age, which is just 66, 67 at the moment, you stop paying national insurance, which is good. But all your pension income is taxable, including your state pension, but they don't take tax from your state pension. So if you're a taxpayer, they take that tax from somewhere else, so it can look disproportionate. You can look like maybe you have a pension with Standard Life and it looks like it's being taxed to the max, and that's because it's the state pension tax that they're taking from a different source.
Okay.
So obviously by taking on additional taxable income, you're going to pay more tax. But if you're paying tax in retirement, you're doing something right, I've always thought. And entering the workplace, you can still put more money into a pension.
Okay.
There are restrictions, but they've increased with the budget yesterday. So it's actually a lot more attractive now to return to work. There's no real implications other than the fact that you'll have greater taxable income. But I would certainly encourage you, even if it's only short term, and you're retired and you've got enough, still join the auto enrollment scheme at your employer, because it's money that you wouldn't otherwise be able to get, and you can still accrue further tax-free cash if you're under the age of 75.
Okay. And Richard, in terms of putting all this into something practical, do you have any top tips for accommodating your pension into your kind of daily budget plan or your weekly budget? Or staff, they get paid weekly here. So if you have any advice for things that they might be able to economize on, or if you're a bit like me, I sometimes just block that part of the pay slip out and just go straight to the bottom.
Yeah, I think that the way you pay your pension contributions through the net pay method really helps, because it's money you don't ever see. Now, this sounds a bit scary, and actually it's not something I see very often, but the regulator, the Financial Conduct Authority, they would tell you that you should be paying into your pension roughly half your age as a percentage of your salary.
Okay.
Oh, don't work that out. It's Friday after, it's Thursday after.
No.
It's Thursday before bank holiday. But that tells you that whatever you're paying, you should be trying to pay a bit more.
Okay.
So if you get a pay increase, or if something changes where you've less money going out, by increasing your employer contribution into your pension, that just helps to nudge it up.
Okay.
So that's something that's worth doing. But yeah, just be aware of, you can always bring it back down. So there's so much flexibility now that I would make sure you're always paying, at least you're paying in the maximum to benefit from the maximum employer's contribution.
Okay. And how simple is it to contact your pension provider and ask them to change that? Like, how quickly is that usually?
If it's in a workplace pension, like a pension, it's as simple as it's usually just through payroll. You just do it through payroll, through HR. So there's not much to it. The other thing you should do is take a look at what you've already got, and the biggest enemy of pension savings is inflation. So you need to be very careful that, let's say, for example, we all agree that £100,000 is a lot of money. It's more than I have in the bank, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
£100,000 in 25 years' time might have the value today of half of that.
Okay.
So it's trying to always be aware that you're building for a lifestyle in the future, and you could end up being retired 30 years, and it's making sure that you have that time, to the resources to enjoy that time. And you are finding, people now are demanding more from retirement, and they're doing things like windsurfing and running triathlons and stuff in their 60s. So you are finding that people need sometimes more money than they had when they were working, even if it's only for a 10-year period. So retirement's changed. Age seems to have changed. Maybe that's me that's changing, but 65 isn't so old anymore. But no, I think it's important just to get into good habits. Join your teams, keep on top of your existing plans, and don't worry, it's not over. It's just a savings plan. That's all it is.
Yeah. No, that's been really helpful. So where can we signpost people if they're a bit like me, where they're feeling a bit overwhelmed, but know that there's people there to help, where can we find you, and how can we get in touch?
Just either if you want to put my details up, anyone can email me with any queries they have.
Yeah, perfect.
Or through Sean at Kith and Kin, I can answer any factual stuff. And so what I typically do when I work with Kith and Kin, it's very much an information. So you might come to me and say, what is inheritance tax, or how does a pension work? And I'll answer that. I'm happy that I enjoy that. If someone comes to me and asks for individual personal financial planning advice, I do that too, but that's slightly different, and that takes a little bit more time, and there could be charges involved in that. But if anyone is watching and has queries, pick up the phone or email me, and if I can help you, I will. And if I can't, I'll say I can't help you.
Oh, thank you so much, Richard. That's been really helpful. And hopefully we'll be in touch soon. Thanks so much again for today.
Thanks.
Bye now.